Hey everyone, welcome to Continuous Thunder. We made it halfway through the year, so now it's time to take a look back at what I thought were some of the best releases of the year so far. I am going to quickly go over 15 albums in this video that I think were some of the best that have come out this year, ones that I really enjoyed or ones that I think are, among the best. And I'm going to give you just like a quick little brief reason as to why I think it's so good. To keep things interesting, I'm going to give you a mix about half and half of stuff that I previously reviewed either on this channel or the Facebook page that existed a few months ago that is no longer there. Rest in peace. And I'm also going to include stuff that I did not review. I did listen to a lot of stuff this year, and since I only do a small handful of videos, usually only once a week, there's a lot that I really can't get to reviewing, and there's still a lot of really good stuff. So that's going to be on the second half of this video, is stuff that did not get video reviews. So this whole video just isn't going to be me repeating myself. If you stick around for the second half, you're going to actually see some new content. Quick reminder before we get too far along that you can follow this channel on Instagram and Twitter at CT Music Review. Those handles are on the screen right now. They'll be back later, and there will be links down in the description. So without further ado, let's get going, and let's get started with albums that I previously reviewed. First up, we have Absolute Zero by Bruce Hornsby. On this album, the veteran singer and songwriter and pianist takes a surprisingly and effective experimental turn. He doesn't forget his pop rock and Americana roots, delivering one of the most interesting and yet enjoyable albums that I've heard all year, with hints of jazz and guest appearances from Justin Vernon of Bon Iver. Up next, we have Distance Over Time by Dream Theater. On their 14th album, the prog metal pioneers deliver one of their shortest albums ever. However, the tracks here distill the best parts of the Dream Theater formula into very tight, concise metal performances. They stay away from typical prog wankery while still remaining technically impressive. The album is simply just another example of Dream Theater proving why they're one of the best in the prog metal game. Up next is Strength in Numbers from Fever 333. Nu metal is making a comeback for some reason, and these guys right here are perhaps the best practitioners of the genre in the new class. This band has members of Let Live, The Chariot, and Night Verses in it, and they produce a very angry and volatile brand of rap metal with strong political messages. And I hate being that guy, but I kind of view them as spiritual successors to Rage Against the Machine. I mean, they elicit far stronger responses from me than anything the Prophets of Rage has done recently. Up next, we have the self-titled album from a project called Malibu Ken. This album is the product of a collaboration between rapper Aesop Rock and electronic musician Tobacco. If you're already in Aesop's camp, then you know what to expect here. If not, this album is full of dense, dark, and funny rapping over some delightfully strange electronics that almost hide a sinister darkness under their shiny 80s influenced exterior. This album just really impressed me early on, and I keep going back to some of the tracks on it. I said it in my catch-up video at the beginning of the year, but go listen to Acid King. It tells you pretty much everything you need to know about this album. If you don't like that, you're not going to dig it, but I think a lot of people will. Up next, we have Ascension from Paladin. This is the debut album from the band, and on it, they combine the styles of power and thrash metal. I don't know if they broke it down into a mathematical formula or they possess the magical powers of their namesake, but I am just continually impressed at the way that this band manages to expertly weave all their varying influences together, track after track, on this album. It's just really, really impressive. If you like heavy music, you shouldn't miss it. Up next, we have Berkeley's on Fire by Swimmers. The collection of songs on the California Skate Punk's second album is far from perfect, with some songs inducing some heavy eye roll. But gosh darn it if the good songs on this album aren't some of the catchiest tunes I've heard all year. There are some seriously good, solid hooks on this album. After that, we have Good at Falling by the Japanese House. After a series of incredible EPs, this English artist has finally given us a proper full length, and it's every bit as good as her previous work. As of right now, this album is a very, very serious contender for my album of the year. It's an album that scratches a musical itch that I didn't really know I had, and at times it reminds me of hide and seek era Imogen Heap. And there really isn't a song on it that I dislike. After that, we have Father of the Bride by Vampire Weekend. After 6 years, the boys return and give us an album that points them in a new direction, yet still remains undeniably a Vampire Weekend album. It's a bit more laid back and long, and it does have a handful of filler tracks, but when it's good, it's on point, and Harmony Hall is still one of my all-time favorite singles of the year so far. Now we're going to move on to the stuff that I actually didn't review in a video or on Facebook. And we're going to start things off with Shiver by Me by AM Taxi. Now, I don't know if this is a punk band with the softer edges of Heartland rock, or if it's a Heartland rock band with the harder edges of punk. But either way, it's a winning combination on this album. This is just a really well put together collection of songs with no filler. Nothing on here is particularly groundbreaking, but it's all executed very well. Even when you think you know how a track is going to go based on the way it starts, it takes a delightfully unexpected turn. And it's another one that just has some really good catchy tunes on it. Up next, we have What's Past is Prologue by Free Throw. The pop punk well has been kind of dry so far this year, but these guys have put out probably the most enjoyable album in that arena this year. And no, I'm not just settling. These guys fall into what I guess you'd call the Midwestern emo revival, kind of like Tiny Moving Parts, only the more mathy American football influenced bits are a little more subdued. Anyway, it's a good album. Best pop punk album of the year so far for me. Up next is The Grand Descent by Fuming Mouth. This is a more recent release on this list, coming out just a couple weeks ago, and it is just some absolutely brutal and crusty death metal that only relents a couple times over the course of the entire album. I think what really makes this band stand out is how they are clearly influenced by hardcore without crossing into metalcore or deathcore territory. They just hit you with riff after riff and some just crushing hardcore breakdowns. And I know I said this before with Paladin, but if you like it seriously heavy, you really don't want to miss this one. After that, changing gears drastically, we have What It Is by Hayes Carll. Hayes Carll is a country and folk singer and songwriter, and I guess you could say he falls into the genre of outlaw country. But the point is, he's a songwriter with a real gift for storytelling and a great sense of humor. And the bottom line is, he's put out one of the most fun country albums that I've heard pretty much all year. After that, we have Kingmaker by Joel Ross. You don't have any real credibility in the music review world unless you mention jazz at least once. So here it is, and here we go. The vibraphone is not a particularly popular instrument in jazz music, especially among its modern practitioners. So when Blue Note puts out an album by a vibraphonist that's younger than me, you should probably pay attention to it. I wish I could do a better job of articulating what I like so much about this, but it might just be that you don't hear the vibes in a prominent setting like this very often. Ross is not only a great musician, but also a great band leader, and both of those qualities come through on this release. And so if you're just looking for something a little different in your jazz rotation, give this one a try. Up next, we have Gray Area by Little Simz, and this is quite possibly the best hip-hop album that I've heard all year. Simz keeps things relatively short with concise, honest, and conscious lyrics delivered in really great flows. But what initially grabbed my ear on this album before I started digging any deeper is the clear influence of jazz rap on Inflow's beats. But there's also enough modern influence and forward thinking in the production to keep this from just sounding like a Tribe or Diggable Planets throwback. If you like music more on the hip hop side of things, you really don't want to sleep on this one. And the last but absolutely not least is When You're Ready by Molly Tuttle. Now, Molly Tuttle is an incredibly gifted guitarist and songwriter. Not only is she the first woman to win Guitar Player of the Year at the International Bluegrass Music Awards, but she has won that award twice in a row. However, her songwriting is definitely more modern Americana and country folk than traditional bluegrass. This album was really just a great intersection of songwriting and instrumental talent, and country and acoustic guitar fans alike really should check it out. So there you have it, my top 15 albums of the year so far. Now we still have a lot of the year to go, a lot more to come out. Who knows, this entire list might change by the end of the year. But for now, I'd like to know your thoughts. Did you listen to any of these albums? Do you agree with their placement on this list? Is there anything that I left off this list that has come out this year that you think should be on it? You can go ahead and leave all those thoughts down in the comments. Also, in the description, you can find links to every single one of these albums on Spotify. Also down there will be links to my Instagram and Twitter where you can follow me. This has been an incredible year for music so far. I can't wait to see what the rest of the year has to hold, and I'm so excited to take you along the journey with me. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.